folks. I'm Lila here with Dean Val. I'll be reading from Book 6, Your Dream Visions by Dwayne, a great writer. We will also be discussing the reading. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Also joining us tonight will be Tim Pinnon from Grants Pass. Well, welcome, Tim. I'm awfully glad you're here. I work with all types of individuals with my humanitarian projects. Some of them are seers, and I'd like to hear what they see about what I'm doing. I have introduced them to Revizar, Paul, and Yuval. The boys and they have come right in to these people's awareness as they introduce themselves. As I would talk with them, they would relay what Revizar or Paul was saying or confirm a real side experience that I had. I always listen and learn as I hear what others have to say because they have their own views, and it's fun that way. My friend, Miss Kay, who is a seer, is one who saw the 5 waves, which I wrote about in The Adventures of Revizar Tars. When I was going through my ordeals from 2003 to 2006, I would call Miss Kay all the time, as I lost my confidence for a while. And she would tell me the boys are helping me back on track. Paul told her I should have died from the wave. I saw in my dream visions because I was really knocked for a loop, and for years. When she wasn't around, I would talk to others I knew. One of the gals was an American who lived in Puerto Rico. When I got to know her better, I asked her one day how she saw me. She said she saw me as a shaft of light, and the impressions came to her of Messiah. What she was really seeing was the rod of power and the new man of the future. Her terminology was her own according to what she knew. I respected a person that has mastered their abilities and is into the adventure of life. Most of the psychics that work in the field mainly stay with their personal areas of human love and relationships. And so their awareness is mainly of astral worlds and realms and basically no further. To them, spiritual means not something that is good and has to do with a God. And so here again is a confirmation of where the idea of spiritual lies for most. I am presenting a real education concerning the various levels of life beyond the limited concepts of the social order. And to do so, I must provide an endless amount of comparisons for everyone to possibly finally get a small portion of what I am delivering. Some who do dream interpretations usually see the surface meaning or medical approach and the psychic analysis. For the most part, a lot of dead imagery can be involved. As I gave the example earlier of the woman in the watery graveyard. The average person might interpret it as possibly her visiting her relatives or that she may be going there soon, and a host of others one-dimensional views, which can also be valid, as there are many sides to anything. If a person just looks at the pieces instead of the whole, then they will get a valid interpretation, but not the entirety of what life really is. When one has the ability to perceive from the real awareness, then they can see the overall situation, and they are not limited to just pieces. I know that most will disagree with my view because they lack the real experience, even though they may be highly educated. Their education is from this one-dimensional level only. This is where the real guides are not concerned with the opinions and attitudes of humans, because they know exactly how humans have been indoctrinated with belief and superstition, even though from the personal view they will band together and form agreements to what works for them, as it all looks so good from the personal self. All that is said and done here will soon go through their own transformation unless a person has the real guidance and the real guide with them. Do you have any comments?
Sure. We have these words given to us in these new books, and then we try to understand what they mean or give us an idea of a reference of what's being given to help us realize our real awareness. It's like we think we see with our eyes, but it's kind of like we're pretty blind to our real selves. Maybe like a kitten with its eyes closed, and it needs, it might be stuck together a bit, and its mother would lick the kitten's eyes lids and stuff to get it unstuck so we can open them and get to see.
I remember that when I was in the corporation, the old name for his Eckankar, there used to be a time, this is during Darwin's time, where a lot of the Eckists went to a certain psychic. His name was Dale Schnook. He was really popular with the Eckists. And this was early on in Darwin's appointed time, just after Paul translated. After Harry got in, this was not looked upon very well at all anymore, of the psychic, going to psychics. And so it was pretty much stopped. But during that time, it was kind of interesting. And I noticed here with Lila's reading, Dwayne used, and he still uses psychics sometimes to get more views. He appreciates another view, and these psychics can see into the other level, so they have to a certain point usually. So, but they do, and if they do see Paul and Rebazar there with Dwayne, then it validates their ability. He usually tests them, and if they don't see Paul or Rebazar, any of the real guides, then he's a little bit more skeptical because they're always around him. But the idea is to get another view on things, because there's so many views, and it really helps the person to be more objective, because we get in our personal self when we are basically one view. But if we have others assisting us that we can so-called trust, and it gives us another opportunity, another option sometimes to see a bigger picture of things. So he did mention Miss K here in the book, and he's still friends with her. They do talk sometimes still. He doesn't really utilize her for what he's doing now that much, because each of these psychics, they have their own personal self too. And in her case, she has a view, she has a personal view, and she's a little bit touchy. So if you say the wrong thing, something, say anti-Trump, she can have a blowout, and it can be over with. So he's kind of walking lightly with her, and each psychic has their own peculiarities about them and what they can see. So it is for a person to decide for themselves whether they want to use a psychic or not to get another view. But again, there's the dime store psychic where you just call on the phone you get a free 5-minute reading, and then then you pay for it if you like them or not. But I would say that's a good test. If you ever see a psychic, see if they can tell them that you have your own guides. And they sometimes have guides too. So you have your guides, Rebazar, Paul, Yabel. Can you see them? And if they can, then it's a go, I would say. See what you can gain from the experience there.
Yeah, that's very good. Seems to me when I was going through that phase too, of psychics, my friends, oh boy, the Ouija board, and we were kind of afraid of the Ouija board, but they bring in some fellow or gal that could really see what was going on, and you wonder, if once you pass over, they're just people again. But they were all in awe of what that person was saying. But it seemed to me if they're just people, over there, they can see what's going on and what's coming up, but it's of little importance. So as far as I was concerned, that didn't hold my interest very much. People just, it's just people over there. And, they can look around the corner and see what's going on. But that just doesn't hold any water. I would say parenting is one of the hardest jobs a person can do. And over the years, I have really learned and gained a lot of respect for moms who take the most time with their children and are there for them 24/7. Everyone wants the best for their child, and with the way the world is today, it truly is a lot harder to raise children and keep them in line for their own safety. I really do respect those people that have chosen homeschooling for their children, because the rep systems do not like people to be independent of them and discover their institutional shortcomings. Everyone should have a choice in their life and not be fear-driven and intimidated into doing otherwise. I've met homeschooled children, and they're very open and aware, and they do not hang around with nothing to do like the normally educated sometimes do. I know a couple that have a daughter and how she was raised according to the basic standards. But what happened as time went on and the daughter became older the mother smothered her with whatever she wanted, and so it set into motion her pleasure principle of being dependent and getting whatever she wanted from her mother. Well, the dad wanted the daughter to be independent and self-sufficient. The daughter is now 27, and she's still working all the time. The me attitude that we're allowed to furnish. This is a common scenario and is neither right nor wrong, but that of choices made from all sides of those concerned. All of us usually do grow out of the rather sided spot of self-interest, only except for those who become politicians. The complex dream has two basic parts, which are the surface meanings and the hidden meanings. This is where the real truth lies. Unseen like a shadow in the night, because the real guides, who they are, they have a super independent depth of perception of all the levels of life and see what is taking place on the real side, way more so than what any human can consider. This is the reason the beings of the is works in the background, as what they are providing is far too much for a human to comprehend. As what they are proving is far too. Daughter recently, where I was sitting in a chair right behind where she was sitting, I sat silently and just watched as she was talking with others. Then at some point she turned and said, "You have done more for me, Dad, than anyone." Then she stood up and came and sat next to me as I put my arm around her. Then she asked me what she should do with her life now. I replied, "Just live your life and take some walks once in a while and enjoy your surroundings and watch as nature plays." It was a heartwarming experience for me because my daughter does not like her attitude. The real guides not only see the aura of a person and what needs adjustment, but they work directly with the real awareness of the individual to grant them experiences in the higher levels that cannot be had here. The real guides and their fun educational techniques far surpass that of even the greatest of universities on the earth. When a dream is looked at, unless it's very straightforward, it may be evaluated for its least value, because most people do not know what real value is. The great adventure of life is to explore what very few will, because those who do will always come through as a winner. Animals and primitive people basically have no sensor for them to deal with in their dream vision. The reason for this is how they have been raised. So they basically have no conscience. The old saying of "let your conscience be your guide" can be a haphazard idea. If a person has been trained to kill everything in sight, then their conscience would be devastatingly cruel. And so again, what society deems to be endearing is sometimes a lot of adult silliness, as usual, any sense of moral laws and obligations, as with all the social orders, does not exist for animals and primitive people. And so it only makes sense. They have not developed any moral principle within themselves. As such, their dream visions will come to them more in a straightforward fashion while they have a body here. If one were to investigate the survival tactics of the primitive person, they would see and recognize they are on a higher survival scale than any civilized person. These people usually use their intuitive nature as opposed to their developed intellect. If Dr. Phil were put in the wilderness, I wonder how well he would do as he tried to intellectually communicate with nature and the animals and how they live. I'm sure he would probably try and talk them out of their way of living into a situation somewhere in the city limits.